This again before going live.
Yeah,
So now feel free to share.
you
What's
got
up,
it.
everyone? Anybody here watching the replay, watching this live? Welcome. Unfound Adventures. Today, we are going to be talking about how to create a series or how to create a short story, how to teach a lesson through a short story. And there's a chance if you're watching this and you create your own story, even if you only plot it, you don't even have to write the whole thing. You have a chance to send it into us to have it be selected for an upcoming monthly subscription that we're getting ready to roll out at Unfound Adventures. We're really excited about. My name is Dillon Barr, up here in Port Huron, co-founder of Unfound Adventures. Guy that you see name is Red Ledbetter, has a real name Matt Emery. Matt, your what would you say role title is here at Unfound?
Um, well, officially the worldsmith, which just means building out the world, including incorporating the imaginations of kids into Bestunia. It's the best job in the
Evan,
world.
second best job in the world after mine. Evan, what's up, man?
Hi.
No, but I wish I was. Evan, what would you say main role at Unfound Adventures for you?
I visualize things. I take the crazy things that come out of the mouths of Dylan and Matt and the imaginations of the kids that they interact with and involve in these programs, and I try to bring them to life as best I can visually. It's a lot of fun.
Your name's perfect. It's just Evan Dash Art.
That's all you need to know.
Head of design, head of illustration, runs our illustration team. He's done all of the artwork for our comics that you've seen over the years. So our job is really working with kids, we're working with the next generation and our generation and help bring their imagination to life through our creativity. We've been doing it over the last couple of years through comics, Tales of Bestunia. We've also done it through novels. We have an origin novel, Harbinger, that is on our website and on Amazon. We also
And on my
have,
screen.
and on your screen. And we also, if you keep going with it, we also have a mystery novel, which is going to be a series that was created by Matt and I, inspired by characters based off of Matt and I. That is out as well. We also do children's books that are mostly all illustrated by Evan. We work in schools. We help young kids come up with what their calling would be in the world of Bestunia, this fantasy world where everyone knows what their destiny is because they have a spiritual beast that walks beside them, or three spiritual beasts that walk beside them, and they get to mirror this person, their gifts, their uniqueness, their personality, the energy they want to give this world. So we help kids figure out what their calling would look like, and in the process, they figure out who they are. And last year, we started to do short stories in elementary schools, and kids from second grade to fifth grade would not only create their calling, they would create a story from it using structures that we gave them. And we got to pull some of those stories, and we are going to be putting it. Matt, do you have this on you as well? We're going to be putting it in the future in a monthly brochure, similar to highlights.
What would you like to see?
Just the brochure. Do you have the brochure?
Oh, is it within reach? Let's see.
Mine's upstairs, or I'd be able to show it.
It's close.
It's nice when we're prepared.
It's super nice when we're prepared. I like to say it's similar to highlights, but it's more fantastical, and it's one that you can be a part of if you want. So these are going to be lined with stories written by kids that were given to Matt and I and Evan to bring to life. And today what we're going to do is show you how we do that using our storytelling structure. So if you're watching live, feel free to throw in the chat, where are you at? What kind of story are you excited to create? And if you're watching the replay, we hope you just have a good time with yourself, with the kids, with your parents. Matt, you got it?
Bad news. Bad news. No such luck. I don't know. I think it's so enticing that the kid probably just picked it up and ran with it.
You want me to share like the digital flip through, or
yeah, you want to do the digital flip through? I mean, do you have the digital flip through where it's?
I believe I can just pull that up if you give me a moment.
Yep. The one where it's in order, because I know when we print it, it has to be like out.
Yeah, no, it's not the zine order.
Did you ever have highlights growing up, Matt?
I did, yeah. Yeah, just activities, games, puzzles, mazes, crosswords, coloring, usually fun facts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
a
mean,
lot
the
of
whole
good
thing
stuff.
is like, how can we recreate it? I mean, it was so fun for me. It's like, I just want to add a fantasy spin to it. I want to add where it's like, man, this could be a world that I lose myself in. I get to read for a bit. You can read it with yourself. You can read it with your parents, with your kids. Reading comprehension questions at the back. But no, I'm excited to bring this to life.
My favorite part of the project
Tell me, Matt.
is, yeah, kids have amazing imaginations, but I think we all probably experience this at the early stages of our own creative journeys, the inability to perfectly bring your imagination to life in a way that can be shared with your fellows or adults, and have the adult be like, yeah, like that, you got something cool going on in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to say that I am working alongside the kids, in these stories necessarily. Some of them are, they write something up that's a paragraph, and it is, I'll tell you, the guys, the boys, always unhinged, unhinged plot lines. And the girls so far, not as a rule, but so far, are generally like a little bit more followable and have a little bit more of a sensible plot, usually an adventure of some sort. So the process of taking those stories and adding my own imagination to it, but like bringing the kids' vision to life. I hope that I can do it justice. I
We'll
hope
be able
the
to see
kids
it
someday
today.
will say, "You nailed it." Yeah, man,
I'm
I do.
excited. This is what it's going to look like. Evan, if you want to kind of slowly walk through, it'll be called
Yeah.
not a weekly beast. It'll be a monthly subscription. We were thinking weekly. In the first 2 pages here, you're going to learn about Bastunia, what it signifies, and what all this work entails. If we continue to scroll down, we want to make sure the kids are having fun. We're going to give word searches that are going to be inspired by the story of the month. Evan did an incredible job doing fun facts. So it's like fun facts about deserts. And the reason he does fun facts about deserts, because if we continue to scroll, this unique story would be called Treasure in the Sand Sea. And it's a quick, short, it's a 4-page story, but if you really think about it, they're half pages. So it's about a 2-page story. But the thing that I love about it is while reading is great, reading comprehension is very important. So being able to ask reading comprehension questions at the end of these, the who, the what, the when, the where, the hows, be able to pull inferences, draw what you think the main character's calling looks like, because it wasn't fully described in the story, but what do you think it might be? And then be able to work on sentence structure. It's like circle the nouns, draw a box around the verbs, underline the adjectives to help kids really understand this. Working enough in schools, what we start to see is like, man, parents have a lot on their plate, and schools and teachers have a lot on their plate. So, how can we
Oh
make
yes.
reading and writing fun at the house? That's what this monthly brochure is really going to seek to serve. So, having fun. We also like to add projects that you can do around the house, missions you can go on around the house or around your hometown, and quests that get you outside your comfort zone, all in hopes to take kids further away from screens. They serve their purposes in their own time, and more into their imaginations with themselves and their parents. So I'm
We were
excited
just
about it. Go
we were
ahead, man.
just encountering some research recently that said, like throughout the history, generation to generation to generation, each new generation has a larger sort of like mental capacity for learning. Each like generation of kids, and Gen Z is the first time that it actually went backwards. And they say education hasn't changed a heck of a lot. Like what they're actually learning, the structure of school hasn't changed too much, but the presence of screens in education is one of the most prevalent changes. So raising future ready kids without more screen time, and actually trying to do our best to reverse some of that data, like feed into kids in a way that actually is increasing their mental faculties.
Yeah, man. I think it's a fun, scary, because it's big and daunting goal to have as a company. But the way we do that, we want you to be a part of it. We want your kids to be a part of it. So we're going to dive in today. We're going to teach you how to create a short story the same way we teach kids in elementary schools, with the hopes of turning some of that into us for us to use in future publications. This is going to be a story today of a painted cat, a cat, a calling that looks like a cat that has a paintbrush in its mouth, the ability to paint masterpieces. And my favorite part about this calling is its name is Sherwin. So Sherwin Williams fans out there, Evan, I don't want to
Huge
kick
Sherwin Williams fan.
I don't want to kick this from the studio, but can you stop sharing and then I'm going to share my slideshow?
Oh, yes. Yes, I can. That's the thing I can do. There we go.
Man, appreciate it. Now let me see if I can dive in. We're going to be coming back to Matt, who's going to be taking notes the same way that you'll be taking notes. So the thing that I ask, if you are tuning in or watching the replay, you're going to want to get 2 sheets of paper for sure, maybe 3. We're going to work on these simultaneously. One of them is going to be a note-taking page. The other one is going to be where you plot. There's going to be 5 main plot points that you're going to want to have for your story as you go through this today. And I am going to share my window. 1 second. There we go. Matt, let's make sure you guys can see my screen. Perfect. We're the guys of Tales of Bestunia. I already told you this. These are some of our comics. This is the incredible Evans art. He also worked on Kung Fu Panda 2. Moving forward, what we want to talk today is about how do you become a storyteller. You're going to create a story within our fantasy world of Bestunia. The structures we're going to teach you can also be used if you're looking to create a sci-fi short story, a romance, a horror, whatever. But today we're going to lean into our fantasy world of Bestunia. And like I said before, we're the Unfound Adventures team. You have me, Dillon. I know you probably see me often on socials or through here. It's because I'm a loud personality. But the true heartbeat and the gears of our team, Matt being the co-founder, the worldsmith, the story creator, Evan, our head of design. He creates a lot of the art, like I've already told you, and he runs a team. The most known person on his team is Casey, who is not my brother. Who creates a lot of the callings for young kids. Anytime I go work in a school, they always are like, is that your brother? It's not. But we do work in a lot of schools. We're going to teach you the same thing today that we teach kids from 2nd grade all the way to 5th grade. We're going to teach you the structure of storytelling. We're going to teach you how, like, what is the steps to write a short story. Matt, you were saying this earlier. A lot of, kids and authors in general get this feeling of like, well, I can't create a really good story. I can't write what George R.R. Martin does or what Brandon Sanderson does. And we put so much pressure on ourselves because we think we need to start with a blank page. And it's not the case. Like, writing a really good story has a structure to it, right? It has plot points. And that's what we're going to teach you today. So we just get to brainstorm your plot points today. And then you get to elaborate on those if you choose after today. Right? So the first thing we would love for you to do, I think a really good short story seeks to teach a lesson. We want to teach a lesson to the readers. Not always, but I would say for the most part, a good short story seeks to teach a lesson. Now, there are 2 different approaches to this. I tend to think of the lesson that I want to teach in one of the short stories that I create before creating the short story. Matt, I am curious, if you are creating short stories or you're creating books, are you thinking of the lesson in the beginning, or does the lesson kind of reveal itself?
It's both, depending on what's my motivation. Sometimes my motivation is a quote, and I just get inspired by it. Sometimes it's a little bit more of an idea, and the lesson finds its way, sort of toward the end of the story. And a lot of times, especially with these kids stories, they're going to be short. They're going to be a couple of pages, maybe 750 words. So you can definitely start with a, hey, in this story, I want the character to realize that their dreams are a more powerful energy source than their fear.
I love it. If you're watching this, first thing I want you to write on your first blank sheet of paper is just the word lesson. And I want you to ask yourself, if you were to put a little dash under it, what's been a cool lesson you've learned recently? If you're watching this with your parents, what's been a cool lesson your parents have instilled in your life? Because there's some people out there that haven't learned that lesson. It can be simple. It can be grandiose. Maybe you have something, and the cool part of the lesson is this might come to you later. But if you're watching this video, feel free to pause it here and think of a really cool lesson you've incorporated into your life recently, or your parent has taught you, or your kid has taught you. And feel free to write it down.
You have any lessons recently, Dylan, in your own life?
I mean, I really like dreams bigger than fears. I think that's a nice, like, I don't want to say simple, but it's like, man, that could be used every day. Like, my dreams are bigger than my fears. If I were to think of a lesson currently in my life, is like, don't be afraid to explore the depths of yourself, even if it hurts in the moment, because there's something you can take from it. Evan, any big lessons you've learned recently?
Um,
Not to put you on the spot. Maybe it isn't right now.
Let me think about that, and I'll get back to you. Ask me in a couple minutes.
My,
And if you do-
my lesson. Oh, go ahead.
No, you meant.
My lesson is the world is full of mysteries, and your tongue is not the best way to explore random substances that you find in the woods.
All right,
Thanks to the roads.
All right, we have to explain this now because we don't want that misinterpreted. Matt's
Okay,
almost
fair
2-year-old got into a stinging plant recently that kind of prickled his tongue. That's what he's talking about. But yeah, man, I think lessons can be simple, they can be deep, and the cool thing is, like, we all have an example here. Like, Evan would be like, hey, maybe Evan finds his through creating the story. So if you have a lesson, feel free to write it down. And if you don't have one, don't stress yourself out, but we can fill that in later. Next thing that I tell people is ask yourself what type of story you want to tell. Now, typically, when we speak of this, we talk of genres. Do you want to write a fantasy story filled with magic, wizards, goblins? Do you want to write a sci-fi story filled with high-end tech, futuristic thinking? Do you want to write a horror? Like, do you like fear and leaning into fear? Or do you want to write a comedy? Do you want it to be funny? Do you want to write a romance? It's up to you. Now, like I said, today, if you were to, under lesson, and you were to put genre, today we'll be writing in the fantasy genre. Because we're going to be writing in our fantasy world of Bestunia. All the places that inhabit it. You can work with magic. You can have fantastical things. This is what Bestunia looks like, all the way up from Metropolia up here, as you can see me waving my cursor around, skyscrapers, the all-build, towering structures, main city where people kind of live in harmony together, base camp being this camping zone, the Jungian forest filled with redwood trees. Evan saw some of these recently with the kids. The Satvana plains, wide open spaces, perfect for camping. The desert of the sand sea, or no wasteland, which is like the wild, wild west. This is where your fantasy story is going to take place, and you get to be the main character. But when I say what type of story you get to write today, I want to figure out what type of calling we're going to focus on in this story. Because in Bestunia, everyone knows their calling in life. Callings are spiritual beasts that are born with us, that signify our destiny in life. And as we lean into our destiny, our callings mature. They look cooler. They evolve. They gain new powers, right? So when I say what type of story are we writing, we're really writing one of three stories. A builder story, an explorer story, or a defender story. So we'll break down each of these. And I want you to ask yourself, what is it that I want to showcase in this story? What type of calling do I want to have in this in particular story? Builders are the callings that make things. They see everything this world has to offer and they say, what can I make from this? They love to do projects. They love to do hands-on learning. They set really big goals and they want to be the best at what they do. They value creativity, discipline. They want to leave a legacy. And maybe that's a type of story you want to write. Maybe you want to write a story where your calling and yourself are trying to build something big. Make a name for yourself. Then there's the explorer path. These are the callings that can fly great distances. They adventure, they travel, they see different wonders of the world. They see everything this world has to offer and they say, what can I learn from this? They want to try new things. They want to go new places. They want to be the first person to try something. Maybe you want to write a story where you try to find a lost city. Maybe you want to find a treasure. Maybe you want to make it to the top of the great mountain. The story today, created by Isabella, she's a third grader, I believe. Yeah, third grader at Keewatin Elementary. Her calling, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, is an explorer, correct?
I would say it could be an explorer. It could be a builder too. I mean, it values creativity certainly, but I think it's draw into the great unknown makes it more of an explorer. You're right.
Love that. So that could be you as you watch this. And then the last type of path, the last type of story that you can create is a defender story. These are the knights of Bastunia. These are the callings that want to protect those that they love. They see everything this world has to offer and they say, how can I just preserve this? How can I protect this? They love life's simplicities, life's traditions. I always make the correlation when I'm talking with kids is like, do you ever go get an ice cream cone and just go down by the lake and watch the water run under the bridge? That's something you can do here in Port Huron, Michigan with your parents. Just have an ice cream cone and watch the water run. You'd be shocked how many kids are raising their hand. They love the simplicity of their life and they want to protect that. So maybe you want to create a story where you protect a town, where you protect a treasure, where you protect a temple. So take a minute if you're watching this video and feel free to pause it and say, what type of story do we want to write in this fantasy world? Do we want it to be a builder story? Do we want to go create something? Do we want it to be an explorer story? Do we want to go find something, search for something, get outside our comfort zone? Or do we want it to be a defender story? Do we want to protect something? Do we want it to have like a superhero movie where we're, shooting down the bad guy? What would your story be? We're going to keep moving. Feel free to pause if you want. Now, if you're a builder, you could go a little bit deeper and ask yourself, are you a maker, a breaker, a supporter, or a strategist? When you think of your calling, is it going to be the one that's making things? Is it going to be the one that's breaking things? Strategist, is it going to be mapping out the blueprints to something? Or is it going to be in a supporting role to help someone else build something? If you're an explorer, what might help you craft your story is, how do you want to explore? Do you want to climb a great mountain? Do you want to swim great distances, be a mariner? Do you want to be a sprinter and travel great distances on land? Or do you want to be a pilot and be off in the air? Matt, I know Isabella's calling is an explorer. Do we know what kind?
Well, it does have wings, and I would guess that it's large enough for Isabella to ride. So I'm going to go ahead and say a pilot. Is that correct?
I believe that's what she made. Is a pilot or a climber? Doug's with us. He's a defender. Love that. So if he's creating a story, it's like one of the things I'd ask Doug is like, what would you want to protect? Right? Knowing Doug, it would probably be a temple. It'd probably be one of the great religious temples in Bastunia, right? And if you're a defender, it's like, do you want to be a vanguard? Do you want to be a knight? Do you want to be a shield, the protector? Maybe you want to be a healer. Maybe some of you want to write a story, be a doctor. Or maybe you want to be a stealth calling. What type of calling would you have? What type of story would you want to write? So once you know what you are, family first, then temple. Love that, Doug. Once you know what type of calling you have and what story you want to create, I want you to write it down. And if you'd like to get more creative, describe what your calling would look like. What would your calling look like if it was an explorer? If it was a defender? If it was a builder? Now, I am going to back out of this real quick. When we did this with Isabella, she created a calling that was an explorer pilot or explorer climber. And she said, man, if I'm being a pilot, it would have wings. It was she loved cats, so she started to draw this cat. But then she started to ask herself, what is the things that she really likes? She's like, I love painting. I love drawing. She wanted her calling to represent that. So her calling has all these splotches of paint on it. It's a colorful calling with wings, a cat, and it's holding a paintbrush in its mouth. Evan, do you want to do just a can we do a quick update on where the calling is at?
I can also show Isabella's drawing if you'd like.
Oh yeah, if you have that, that'd be great, Matt. As soon as I see one of you to share your screen, okay, I'll go Matt first. So this is what Isabella created. This is her calling. I did think that was a fang with blood dripping off for a while until Matt told me, dude, that's a paintbrush. So that is Sherwin. Feel free to stop screen share. And what happens when you draw this, when you try to bring it to life, this is what we turn it into. Oh, I love this, Evan. Very tiger-esque, paintbrush in the mouth, wings on its back, right? So this is now the story that we're going forth with Isabella. Awesome. Evan, if you want to take screen share off, and then I'll bring mine back.
Sure.
If you're watching this, take a minute and ask yourself, what type of calling would you have? Right? You're getting, this is great praise. We also hope Rhodes is doing well. Bella, we're sending our best. We hope the yogurt tastes very good. Bella wants to cuddle Sherwin. Sherwin just seems like a really cool calling. Now, Isabella has already created her story, but what she does is she turns that story in, and Matt and I take from that and start to plot what that story would look like. So we're going to go through these plot points. Matt, I'm going to ask you some questions here in the same way that I would ask our anybody that's watching this, anyone that's watching the videos, but I'm going to share my screen again.
Sure.
Share screen, share entire screen. Cool. So once you know what your calling looks like, once you know the type of story you want to create, builder story, explorer story, or defender story, the next thing we need to figure out is where would it take place? So on one of your papers, you should have lesson that you want to teach. And the other sheet of paper, my apologies for not saying this earlier, you want to be able to write down what type of calling do you have, number one, and where would your journey begin? Doesn't mean where it would end, but where would it begin? I'm going to walk through some of the places in Bastunia. Like I said, Metropolia is a big, booming city with tall skyscrapers. A lot of builders like to go to Metropolia. Think of New York City meets feudal Japan. That's in the far north, as you can see, Metropolia. And as we come down, a lot of builders take place in what's called the all build, where they try to build the biggest structure to appease the gods, win prizes. So maybe you want to create a big structure in the all build. Then there's Main City. This is where a lot of people start their journey. It's where everyone lives in harmony together. You have the Jungian Forest, giant trees, redwood trees, huge forest. Base camp is more of the camping hangout area where the rock climbers like to go.
Yeah, they don't like permanent structures. They want to be able to pick up and go at the drop of a hat.
Tents, hammocks. That's where they. That's how they live. Kind of. Correct me if I'm wrong, man. Kind of similar to the Satvana Plains right here in the middle, right? It's like you're doing a lot of camping out here and wandering out here.
Yeah.
Open
sky.
Would.
There's some villages here and there, and there's some people that you'd have some builders and you'd have some defenders certainly, but it's not like base camp where it's the mecca of explorers. And this is like right on at the base of the great mountain that everybody likes to climb.
Satvana Plains, there's a lot of wanderers out there. And the further south that we go, you can see the Sand Sea, broad, vast desert. No one has ever traveled to the end of the Sand Sea. And then no wasteland you see in the bottom left, which is kind of the wild, wild west. That kind of Pueblo feel of like cowboys, sheriffs. There's the Coliseum where people go to battle. Right? So you want to ask yourself, where would your journey begin? And in the same page that you wrote, if you're a defender, explorer, or builder, write where would you want your journey to begin? Matt, if we are asking looking at Isabella's story, where do we think her journey would begin?
Well, somewhere on the outskirts of Main City.
Nice.
Yeah,
Perfect.
right
So
on
somewhere,
the brink of the Jungian forest there.
love this. So right up in here.
Yep.
Main City, Jungian Forest. So take a minute, write down where would you want your story to begin. Now, the next thing we want to ask ourselves is, what would be something you want to do in this fantasy world of Bastunia? What would your goal be? What journey do you want to go on? What do you want to create? Or what do you want to protect? So where would you live? And then what would you want to do?
Ever since you said no one's gone across the Sand Sea, I'm thinking I kind of want to go across the Sand Sea personally.
Perfect. So Matt will do that in his next story. Isabella, correct me if I'm wrong, Isabella wanted to climb the Great Mountain. Or at least go to the mountains, correct?
She wants to see them, in person for the first time.
She's
never seen them up close.
To see them.
Yeah, see the mountains, right? That's a great explorer journey. So maybe if you're an explorer, your calling as an explorer, you want to go travel places. You know, we have these temples, the earth temple, the air temple, the water temple, the fire temple. Maybe you want to go travel to one of the temples. Maybe you want to go to some place you've never been before. So ask yourself, where would you want to go? Now, we already have a double up. Andy wants to go. Andy and Matt are going across. The cool thing, Andy, is if you're doing this with Sage, you guys could be the first one because Matt is creating a story for Isabella right now. Matt would be the second person to go across the Sand
I would
Sea.
love to help Sage create a story. I know there's probably going to be some swords involved, maybe like finding some gems. We could try to have like a little Zelda action in Bastunia somewhere.
Big karate action. So write down, what would you want to do in this fantasy world? If you could do anything, if you could go anywhere, and if you have questions, you can always reach out and ask us. If you're watching live, feel free to ask in the comments. But if you're watching on the replay, you're going to have to join our Facebook group to ask us questions there. We're always here to help answer. Now, while we're continuing to take short notes, I want you to start to ask yourself, what could get in the way? Because any good story, Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, any good story has something that gets in the way. There is never a good story that was written where the main character is born into a perfect life, continues to live a perfect life, has a goal of a more perfect life, and achieves it without any challenges.
Boring.
Right? We have to have challenges that are in the way. So maybe if you're a builder, you run out of resources. A fire hits or a flood happens and you run out of resources, or you lose the resources you have. If you're an explorer and you want to go into the mountains, maybe an avalanche occurs. Maybe there's a fork in the road. You think you're going one way and you somehow start to get lost. There's one way that's dangerous, one way that looks calm, but a little suspicious. Maybe someone goes missing. If Andrew was going through the Sand Sea with Matt would clearly get lost. Maybe Andy would have to go find him.
Definitely.
Something else. Matt, is there any other things you could think that could get in the way of some of these stories? Knowing Bastunia the way you know Bastunia?
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of predators. There's all kinds of traps that you could fall into. There's bandits in the woods. There's a Zigra. Oh, speaking of.
Right, you have Zigra. This is what Evan has created. Shadowy figures that come from the cosmos that could get in the way. Banding together with your calling in yourself or even your friends to defeat them. But start to ask yourself, what could get in the way of your story in a fantasy world of Bastunia? Write a little note down. And then ask yourself, what is it that gets in Isabella's way, if you don't mind me asking, Matt? What did she put? Wasn't it a Zigra?
It was a howler, I believe.
Yeah.
Or no, it's It's an Azigra that's not depicted in the last slide.
Ooh, scary. So scary Azigra. It's getting in the way of her being able to experience the Boundary Mountains. We're going to show how all this comes together in a bit. Right now, we're just taking notes on the same page that you wrote your calling type down, where you would live in your goals. Once you know what could get in the way, just take a couple of notes. How would you want to get through it?
Yeah, you'd say fear is also something that could get in the way. There's a little bit of an internal obstacle as well as the external obstacle.
Yeah. So asking yourself what would get through it, it's like, do you have to pump yourself up with a good story? Do you and your calling work together to conquer the fear? How do you remind yourself to get through the fear? If an Azigra gets in the way, do you call on your friends for help? Do you take the Zigra head on? Do you work your way around it? Do you find resources? Go ahead.
You give up and go home.
Do you give up and just go home, call it a day, say, this is too hard, I'm not going to learn anything? But how would you get through it? Maybe you have some ideas. Maybe not. It's okay. Right now, we're just taking notes. And this is the cool part of being an author, is in the beginning, it's a little messy. We're jotting things down, and then we're going to bring structure to it. Now, if you didn't write a lesson earlier, this would be a time where you can come back and say, what did you learn in the process? If you did write a lesson earlier, you can ask, how does it fit into this? We said earlier, Isabella had the lesson of dreams are bigger than your fears. Well, if her roadblock is a howler getting in the way, this is a Zigra that gets in the way and it makes her scared, she's got to learn the lesson of my dreams are bigger than my fears. How could she do that? Write some notes. And the cool part is, if you have taken good notes up until now, you have 80% of what you need for a really good story. Because becoming a great author is not about just putting pencil to paper and just starting to write. You are not born a great writer. If you think great writers are born, my name is Dillon, and that's Matt. Hello. And you don't have to know every detail before you write. Being a really good storyteller is, you want to treat this like a journey. And sometimes you're not even writing. Matt and I talk about this. Sometimes great storytelling and getting ready to write a good story is just this. It's being okay sitting in silence and thinking. And then we can put frameworks in place. And once you put the frameworks in place, it's just coloring between the lines, using your 5 senses, adding things like dialogue. That's all icing on the cake. Every good short story has 4 main parts. Set the scene. First thing we need is, where are we at? That's why we want to know where your story starts. The second thing that happens is what we call the spark. Something happens to set us off on our adventure, and we can't go back. And we make progress, and we progress, and then we inevitably hit roadblocks. Challenges that get in the way. Like we said, there's no good story that doesn't have challenges. But then you finally have what we call the big finish. You conquer these roadblocks, you conquer these challenges, and you learn your lesson. And for those that don't believe me, a lot of fans of Dogman. Let me set the scene. We meet Dogman, who's a police officer that's got a dog's head and a human body. Which, by the way, if anybody is scared of the way that our comics start, and go look at the history of Dogman and how Dogman came to be, because that's scary. But we learn that Dogman is loyal, brave. He's a little goofy. We meet Chief, and we meet Petey the evil cat. We set the scene in any Dogman story. And then the spark happens. Petey escapes from jail, and he's causing trouble. He's up to no good. Dogman's on the case. And he's on the case, and he makes progress, and then roadblocks inevitably happen. Petey creates his tricks, messes things up. Dogman struggles. City's in danger. He's got to figure out how to solve them. And then the big finish. Dogman uses his smarts and his instincts to outsmart Petey and get him caught again, put him in jail. Until we're on to the next one. If you still don't believe me, Harry Potter. Harry lives with the Dursleys. Doesn't know he's a wizard. He lives a really sad life underneath stairs. And then the spark happens. He's greeted by this Hagrid guy who says, "You're a wizard, Harry." And he's like, "Have I always been a wizard?" And there's no going back. And in the first book, he joins Hogwarts, inevitably has roadblocks. There's the Sorcerer's Stones. They face trolls, horrible CGI trolls in a bathroom. There's flying keys. There's a giant life-size game of chess. And then there's a big finish. He faces Professor Quirrell, who's also he who shall not be
Spoiler.
named. I
know. Getting a remake, man. Like,
protects the stone.
The spoiler alerts are back on.
Now, that is what every good story has. So now, let's go back to the original piece of paper. And let's put the structures in place for your story. Okay? The first thing that you wrote down is a lesson that you want to teach. The next thing you're going to write is, you can put a little 1, and you can write set the scene. And all we're going to do is put bullets underneath set the scene. And you're going to write things like, where do you live in Bastunia? We're going to introduce your character. We're going to show what takes place in your life. Paint the picture using the senses. So you can ask yourself, where do I live? What does my house look like? Do you live in a castle? Do you live in a tree house? Do you live in a tent? What sounds? What smells do you hear? Do you smell every day? What do you and your calling like to do for fun? Matt, if we were to go to Isabella's story, how would you answer some of these questions? Where does she live?
Yep, she lives just in the forest outside of Main City. Their house is a castle. The typical sounds of the forest, so you got the birds chirping. You probably have some monkeys, perhaps, making their noise, whatever you call a monkey noise.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the rustling from the little critters. They've got all kinds of things that they could forage, and they got tasty berries and fruits, and certainly lots of flowers and different things that they can smell.
And then what would they do? What would her and her calling do every day for fun?
Oh, they love to paint.
Painters, right? So as Matt's going through this, as he's telling me this right now, these are just bullet points. You know, he's going to write things like birds chirping, live in a castle, paint every day for fun. We want to get an idea to ourselves of what is it that we're going to inevitably write, right? But it helps us paint that picture. And the next thing that we do is we go to the spark. This is the thing that kicks off the real story. This is the thing that's attached to what it is that you want to do in the world. Something has to happen that gives you a point of no return. And it allows you to make the decision to go on your adventure, to build the thing you want to build, to defend what you need to defend. So you can ask yourself, when you think of what you'd want to do in Bastunia, what would send you on your way? Or how would your journey start? Would a letter come in the mail? Would you hear about an Azigra attack? Would someone come to town and ask you for help? And how does it make you feel? Does it excite you? Does it scare you? Matt, when we look through Isabella's story, what are some of the answers to these questions that come to mind for you?
Yeah, so they've been painting and experiencing their world through what they can paint. But they keep painting mountains, and they just become discontent with the paintings. They want to see the real thing. And one day, Isabella sees her calling. He's sad, or it's sad, and she can't cheer him up. And realizes, because they share thoughts, that the calling is upset because it doesn't want to just look at paintings anymore. It wants to see the real thing.
Right? I love that. So the thing that helped us initially is knowing what it is that you and your calling would want to do. Isabella said, we want to go see the mountains. We want to experience them. So she lives in a castle. So the spark should be attached to what it is she wants to do. They want to go see the mountains. So the spark is drawing pictures of the mountains and seeing her calling sad. Because her calling wants to experience the mountains. She wants to experience the mountains. And they make a decision to go off on an adventure to the mountains.
Indeed, they do.
So you're going to... Sorry, Matt.
But...
Yep, but...
It's not so simple as that. They live on the edge of one of the most dangerous places in the whole Bastunia continent. And she's aware of lots of things that could get them. Lots of things that could throw their plans off. They might get lost. They might run into a predator. She might find bugs in her sleeping bag.
So we ask ourselves, what would the roadblocks be? Because every good story has something that could get in the way. Your character is going to begin to grow as you start to adventure off to the Sand Sea, as you start to go to the mountains, as you start to protect the town from an Azigra attack. Challenges are going to happen. It builds tension in the story. It makes the readers worry or wonder, how are they going to solve this? Can they solve this? So the third thing you'll write down is roadblocks. And then I want you to bullet point, what are the things that could get in the way? What would you do on your journey? And what could get in the way? Is it that fork in the road we talked about earlier? Is it that avalanche? Is it an Azigra? Is it running out of materials? And how does that make you feel? What is the roadblock that Isabella said would get in her way, Matt?
She worried about a lot of things. So what she says, what about the monsters that are out there? The Azigra. What if they get lost? What if they get into trouble? What if they take a map and the map's not up to date and they get, they take a wrong turn? And again, she did mention bugs in her sleeping bag.
And I think
I feel like number one for her is like fear, letting her fear of the things that could happen stop her from pursuing, that dream of seeing the mountains herself.
Yeah, it's like all these coming into place, and that comes back to the lesson, right? That she wants to teach is now fear is going to creep in, and I believe in her story, and the fears happen, and Azigra gets in the way. And they want to turn tail and run. But that's what leads us to the big finish. The big finish of our story, if you write a number 4, it's going to show us how the character overcomes those challenges. If you don't have the big finish, the roadblocks are pointless. The big finish is the payoff. This is where the main lesson comes out. This is the satisfaction of a story. It's like we were able to get around these challenges. So things you want to ask yourself. How would you overcome the challenge? How's Isabella going to overcome all these fears coming into her head? How could your calling help? Would your calling use its powers? How would you feel? So Matt, what are some of the things that Isabella would say as we read her story? What are some of the things that Isabella taps into to overcome her challenges?
She has this sense that she's got something really important to do for the sake of her calling and for the sake of her dream. She's one where she's right on the cusp of realizing this big dream. She can succeed, and she knows that it's really important for her to stick it out, because if she turns back now, she doesn't know if she'll ever get an opportunity like the one that she has right now.
Yeah, it's so fun because it comes back to this lesson that she wants to teach, right? Which is your dreams are bigger than your fears. She reminds herself, her and her calling remind themselves of how they can get around these challenges because their dreams are bigger and these fears shouldn't hold them back. And I think if we even get more tangible, the tangible fear in front of her is there's an Azigra. She might not have the most powerful calling. She's got a calling that likes to paint. Right? So the cool thing, what we're doing here is, I know this took time. It's about 40 minutes, 30, 40 minutes. Matt, would you agree that anytime we create a story, whether it's a short story, a chapter, or a novel, this is always what we do to start? Yes?
Not just yes, absolutely. Not
I
just
thought you were going to be like,
stories,
no.
but no, absolutely. I also was laughing about this because we were getting ready for this, and we had put together these plot points. We were talking about them, and I'm listening to your voice memos where you're just talking about something that you experienced that day, like a lesson that you learned with Keith or something. So I was laying in bed with Keith. I'm like, all right, here he is setting the scene. I got it. We can't just get the lesson or like the revelation. There's always the 4 plot points even in audios.
Yeah, man. I think it's it becomes easier when we start to bullet point these out. Now you might be looking at your notes and being like, how does this turn into a story? Well, that's the next step we take is we start asking ourselves, well, let's just first set the scene. Take it one pillar at a time and start. And Evan, if you want to get ready to share your screen, feel free, but you got a runway. Just ask yourself, how would I set the scene? I always like to say an easy start to a short story is welcome to blank. That's what I call the How to Train Your Dragon intro. Welcome to Burke. But you could say welcome to Main City. Welcome to the Jungian Forest. I live here with my calling, and we live in a castle. We live in a treehouse. And this is
welcome to the edge of the sand sea. Mm-hmm. The wind blows so hard that it feels like bee stings. There you go, Andy.
Right?
We're almost right.
Now, the other part of this is and Matt's what we're going to do is you don't have to be perfect at this. You could put together a choppy story, and that's how we get better is we're willing to put ourselves out there and try to write. And then we slowly get better at it. And in the meantime, we're here to help you. So Isabella not only plot pointed this out, she started to write her story, and then she turned it into us. And she said, I would love Matt and Dillon's and Evan's edits.
Dillon can edit. Yes.
Dillon can edit. So we're going to finish today's call and show you what we took from all of that after we took all of these notes and what we turned it into. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. You're going to see some of Evan's drawings. Not all, but some of them. And Matt, you're going to read the story of Isabella, what we turned it into. I'm going to shut up.
If it's okay with you, I think I'll get my fox friend to read this for us.
Perfect.
His name is Red Ledbetter. Hang on, I'm gonna go grab him.
Of course.
Are we ready?
Yeah, Ben. Yeah, I'm ready. We're ready.
On the outskirts of Main City stood an enormous castle decorated with splashes of paint. These vibrant colors were painted by the artistic hand and paw of Isabella and her talented calling, Sherwin. Sherwin was a round, many-colored feline beast with long, bending whiskers. It had angelic wings and a bushy tail. It liked to carry a paintbrush in its mouth, the handle sticking out like the tail of a lizard or a mouse. They spent their days making the world colorful from their outdoor studio. Isabella dreamed of going to the mountains one day. Sherwin often painted this dream of theirs on the walls, ceilings, and canvases. But one day, Sherwin began to mope. When Sherwin moped, Isabella moped too. She came to sit next to Sherwin on the ground next to the gigantic mural they painted together. Their work of art depicted the Boundary Mountains in so much detail that you could almost believe you were there. Almost. See, Sherwin wanted to see the real thing. But Isabella wasn't sure. What about the monsters that lurked in the forest? The terrible creatures called a ziggurat. Some of them were rumored to have 10 legs with 100 talons. Some were said to float in the air like balloons with long stingers like a jellyfish. Some were said to be able to swallow an entire house in one bite. And what if they got lost? What if they got in too much trouble? What if there were bugs in their sleeping bags? All of Isabella's fears came tumbling out at once. For a moment, they sat looking at the mirror with tears in their eyes. I guess the painting is good enough for me, Sherwin thought. Isabella always understood Sherwin's thoughts the moment they came. She didn't like to see Sherwin sad. Right then and there, she realized that she had to face her fears, as much for Sherwin as for herself. Even though a lot could go wrong and it would be lonely and dangerous, their dreams were bigger than their fears. A few weeks later, they set off for the Boundary Mountains. Worried they would not be able to find their way home, they painted the sidewalks as they went. Trees got extra splashes of green. Flowers got brushed with pinks, purples, blues, and yellows. But before they arrived in the mountains, a man-eating, drool-dripping, shadowy Azigra cut them off. It stood 10 feet tall on 4 legs, had a slender body like a crocodile, and too many eyes to count. Its body was as black as night, except for its shining steel talons. It cut down small trees by accident as it walked. Those many eyes darted back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, watching everything, watching them, following their every move. There was no getting by without a fight. More frightened than they'd ever been before, they quickly retreated into the safety of a cave. After a long night, Isabella thought about turning back. That would be the safe choice. They could go home, sleep in their own beds, paint the mountains instead of risking everything to see them. But as she sat there, something didn't feel right. If they turned back now, they would miss the mountains. They would always wonder what they were like. Sherwin looked at her. She looked at Sherwin. That same sly grin slid across both of their faces. They were still scared, but they were going anyway. Our dreams are bigger than our fear, Isabella said. Armed with a fresh palette of paints, some brushes and rollers, and Sherwin's bushy tail, they set out once again. This time, as they neared the Boundary Mountains, they were ready. When the horrible monster appeared, they didn't run, and they didn't fight. They painted their surroundings with distraction. The Azigra could not figure out what was real and what was fake. In its confusion, they snuck away, strutting the rest of the way to the mountains with confidence. They did it. That night, they finished their trip by painting the sunset. It was their best work yet. For many years to come, it would be a beautiful sight to be enjoyed by all the people of the land. They hoped that it would remind people that though fear may follow you, it doesn't get to decide where you go.
Scene. Thank you, Red and Matt. But seriously, it's so cool. I'm sitting here smiling to see what things turn into. It's one of the big lessons I like to get across in the writing process is writing is a journey. It takes time. It takes patience. We sat here together for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, talking about how we could plot a story, right? And we bullet point certain things that Isabella told us and that she wrote, and then we replotted. And then it's going to take some time after that you might want to walk away and then come back to your notes. And then you start writing. And it won't be perfect to start. But you take time doing that. You see the story start to come to life in your head. You start asking yourself, man, I can see this. I wonder who I could help with it. I wonder who might read this and say, you know what, my dreams are bigger than my fears. Man, that's something that's not only important for a third grader, that's important for a 30, 40, 50-year-old. That's the cool part of writing for me. And then giving something like that over to a team like us, that if you say, hey, elaborate on this, I give Dillon and Matt permission. I give Evan permission to bring this to life. That's what we want to do at Unfound Adventures, and we can't do it without our audience. So anybody here that's watching this, whether live or on the replay, you could have a big say in stories that get out to the world, and we'll just be here to help you. I was curious what this is the Azigra, yes, Evan?
Yes.
This is scary, man. This scared me. This is good, though, right? It's like Evan, and correct me if I'm wrong, Evan, from an art standpoint, it's like, I would imagine it's also hard to be like, Evan, draw a scary Azigra. But if you're able to read a story, or if you're able to see plot points of Azigras with multiple eyes and a bunch of talons, like, does that make it easier for you to draw this?
Yeah, for sure. And, in drawing anything, I try to first and foremost find something that ties into the story in a thematic way. So it can't just be rule of cool. Does this look good? It should be something as, just for instance, something as simple as like the pigtails here are meant to, kind of feel like the head of a paintbrush. Something as simple as that. Little touches like that go a long way with me. And even if people don't see them, I feel like on some level we can they create echoes or murmurs within the work that we can kind of appreciate in tandem, and they help add. As long as it's a plus one to the experience, it's a win for me. So
Can you
I
go
try to
back
focus on things like that.
and so what did you look for in the calling, if you don't mind me asking, if you go back?
In Sherwin itself.
Well, this one, yes, but I was also thinking of the picture of them together.
I mean, so yeah, this was more about the two of them,
Yeah.
kind of feeling that ennui, that mopiness as they look at their own work, and they're like, this is beautiful, but it's not the real thing. It's not what I really want to feel or create or instill in someone, because it's not the real thing. So I just kind of wanted to capture that. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time, especially live on this call, trying to actually replicate their mural.
Right.
And then what you'd see is their silhouettes, the back of the calling and the back of the girl in front of it, rather than their expressions, which are kind of more important to me. I don't think this is like the final frame of a story shot or anything like that, but it's a good starting point for me.
I think Matt's did a great job as I'm listening to the story to be like, okay, I get that they're drawing a painting of the mountains that they want to go to. So I loved being able to see it from this side. To me, it's why I did the pop-up. It's like, this is the spark. This is like, once they have this feeling, once they have this looking at something that they want to experience firsthand, there's no turning back. They decide that they're going to go out on this quest. And yes, things are going to get in the way. Roadblocks are going to happen. But this is the moment they come back to be able to teach their lesson. It was also a question that I asked, so Evan would pull this back up so I could do a screenshot and share this later, because I know Evan, he's probably looking at 8 things that make this not perfect, but screenshot has already happened. So Evan, thank you for your work. But anybody watching here, Evan, if you want to stop screen share.
Sure.
Because we're gonna close it out here. This is what we seek to do at Unfound Adventures. We want to create a monthly booklet that we showed you earlier that you guys can have right at your house to read a fun story written by Matt, but inspired by a kid just like you or just like your kids that wants to create a story and teach a lesson that we just bring to life. Matt writes, Evan or Casey creates, they draw the story, and I'm there. I just kind of watch and tell you all about it, and it's amazing, and I love it. But if it's something that you want to learn more about and lean more into, please let us know. Please join our Facebook community, and because that's the best way to communicate with us. You can also email us at team@unfoundadventures.com. Share your stories and let us know if it's cool if we edit, because there's a chance they're featured in a monthly subscription that we put out in the next, hopefully, couple of months. That's it for me. Matt, Evan, we'll go in order. Anything you guys want to add, Matt?
Yeah, please send your stories, even if it's just your page notes, and you don't want to write anything up, but you feel like you have a really good start. We can use that. I've been writing a few of these a week, so not all of them will make into the booklets, because we'll certainly have lots and lots of submissions. But you have the best chance right now of having your stories end up in the booklets, because we haven't been overly flooded.
Love that. Evan, anything you want to add, man? Whether it's from an art standpoint, creative standpoint?
Yeah, I would actually add the same, except I would say, not everyone is going to find that writing is going to work for them and communicating what they want to communicate, but don't let that stop you, either A, from trying to write, or B, from trying something different. If all you feel that you can get out of this process are pictures or scribbles that, you feel are getting at something you want to say, but maybe not quite getting there, send those in. It doesn't have to be writing, doesn't have to be fully cohesive, doesn't have to lay everything out on a silver platter. But if you're willing to be part of like a collaborative back and forth process that can involve art just as much as writing, then don't let that stop you.
Yeah, I think all of these are acts of creativity and imagination, and it's like, let us be your team, let us help you. So yeah, like Evan said, if it's pictures or if it's just scribbles, send them our way, and trust that we can make something with it. And if you want to see our edits before we put it out there, let us know. We definitely want to keep you in the creative process. I think the coolest part of Unfound Adventures is these adventures that we're putting out there to the world, they're unfound. right now. It's your job to find them and send them to us so we can let other people see a little bit of you. And then that's a little bit of you in somebody else's life. That's a lesson you teach that somebody in Texas, Arkansas, Ireland could read, and it could change their life. That's the cool part about imagination and creativity, at least to me. I love what we're building. And I appreciate you all. And shame on you for anyone that believed that we were actually giving up a few days ago on April 1st. I cannot believe that many people reached out to me.
Offered to send you flowers.
Offered to send me flowers. We're like, oh man, is there anything I can do to help you? I'm like, now that you're no, it's like we're still doing it. Yes, there are things
Harry
you can do
and
to help
David gift
baskets. Appreciate you all. We will start to do more of these in the future. So if things didn't fully land, you want to come to another one, I'll get better at presenting. We'll get better at writing. We'll get better at drawing these. And we look forward to seeing you all in future calls. Have a great weekend.